Hey, welcome back everyone. My name is Dave and I'm going to be walking you through getting your models from Substance Painter to Blender. Okay, so the goal is to make it as close to what we're seeing in Substance Painter as we can. So obviously this is assuming that you're all done with your model, your materials, and all of that kind of stuff. So how are we going to go ahead and do that? Well, I can see that on my folder here, or on my desktop, I have the Substance Painter file, and I have a folder called Maps. Okay, there's nothing in there right now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to export out all my files from Substance Painter into the Maps folder. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go to File, Export Textures, and then here I'm going to say I want to go to the Maps. There it is, and select Folder. Great. There's the file right there, and if I click on this, this actually has a lot of files. Okay, there's a lot of texture sets on this. So, and if yours only has one, that's fine. I can see that it's going to do the base color, the roughness, the metallic, normal, height, and emissive. Now, I'm going to go back to global settings, and I want to make sure that this is set to PBR metal rough. You can see that there's a lot of different things that we can choose here. But I think I'm going to just leave it on PBR metal rough. Okay, so here it is. PBR metallic roughness. Excellent. And if I go to the output templates for PBR metal rough, PBR metallic roughness, I can see here's the naming convention. Okay, so when it's $, that means that it's going to dynamically fill in the name. So if this is called my motorcycle model, then it's going to be filled in right here. The texture set is, I've got this divided into 4 different texture sets: the motor, the frame, the baskets, and the wheels. So I do want it to name those properly, and then it's going to be whatever the name in the file is. So in this case, the base color. So I don't think I named this motorcycle very good, so I'm just going to call this bike. Okay, and so I can replace that if I want to. Now this is a completely optional step. You don't have to do this, but I'm just going to go just to show you how to do this. So I'm just copying and pasting all of those. And now if I go back here, and if I click on this, it looks like this. Yeah, there, if I hover over it, I can see bike, and then the texture set, then the base color. Okay, that's good. And I can see that that's going to be for all of these. So it's going to export all of the texture sets. Now I don't need height, and I do need emissive on, I think, one of these, perhaps. I'll go ahead and leave it like that. And it looks like this is my texture set. This is what it's called. So check basket, check frame, check motor, check tires 1. So maybe not the cleanest naming, but I feel like that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and back to my global settings. I can see that it's going into my maps folder, and I'm going to leave everything else alone and click export. Great. Now it's doing all of the files that we did, or that we called for, and you can see it tagged it with bike to make it a cleaner name. And if I look here, maps, there they are. Okay. Excellent. That looks pretty good. And now, if I go back to Substance Painter, now you might be saying, well, I don't know where my model is. Okay, that's okay. If you lost your model, hopefully you didn't, but you can export it out of Substance Painter. So I'm just going to go File, Export Mesh, and I don't want it with triangulation, and I do want, without displacement or tessellation. I'm just going to hit Export, and now I'm going to go to my desktop, Maps, and I'm just going to call this I'll call it FBX underscore bike. And maybe I'll just save this as an FBX file. There we go. Probably FBX or OBJ would be fine. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And now I also want to export the lighting out of Substance Painter. And I think this is what a lot of people forget. So to find out what lighting your scene is using, and by the way, I can see that that's that globe, so I'm just holding down Shift and right mouse clicking and I can see that the environment is rotating around. And the environment, even though it doesn't look like it's in an environment right now, I can see that sure enough, if I look at something reflective, I can see, oh, it is. There is some type of environment here. So if I go into my display settings, I can see that my environment map is called panorama. And if I bring up the environment opacity, and if I bring down the blur, I can see, oh, sure enough, this is the environment that the bike is in. Okay. Now by default, this is set to blur and this is set to 0 opacity, but that's really what's responsible for the lighting in Substance Painter. So I want to make sure that I get that file as well. To do that, I'm going to come down here to Environments, and Panorama is right here. And I can right click and I can go to Export Resource. And now I'm going to put it in my maps, hit Select Folder, and now I should be good. So if I look here, if I go once again back into my maps, I have all of my files, plus my bike geometry, plus the lighting information. Okay, great. I think we're set. So now I'm going to go into Blender and kind of see what we're doing there. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to launch Blender. And I'm using Blender 3.0 for whatever that's worth. But if you're using a different version of Blender, it really shouldn't make much difference. So I'm just going to click on this. I'm going to go ahead and select the cube and hit delete. I don't want to see the 3D cursor or the camera. So I can go up here and I can say, let's turn off camera visibility. And if I want to turn off the 3D cursor, I can come here and turn off 3D cursor. Okay, great. So now I'm going to go to File, Import, and since we saved it as an FBX, it was here. If we saved it as an OBJ, we would have to select OBJ, but I'm going to go to FBX. And now if I go to my desktop, Maps, here it is, Import, and great, there's the bike. Okay, so I can start to see that I have everything right where I want it, and that looks cool. Let's see how the scene is kind of set up here. So if I go to the corner here and kind of drag this over, you can see that I created another window. And if I go here, up here, I can change this to something else. So I could go to like image editor or shader window or something along those lines. I think I'm going to go to shader editor. Okay, and if we look here, I can see that this is the material on the bike right now. And if I bring this over, if I click on this, I can see that the seat is actually a different material. The wheel is a different material. And if I'm looking over here, I can see that's tire 1, and then the basket's another material. So this is actually probably a little bit more complicated scenario than you would have, but I'm doing that just to make sure that all questions are answered, and then go ahead and kind of just follow along. And if you do have questions, go ahead and put those in the comments below, and I'll be sure to answer that. But just go ahead and kind of sit back and take a look at how I do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to this upper corner and pull this down again. And up here, I want to go to, let's see, File Browser. Okay, I think this is really cool how we can use the file browser right inside of Blender. So now I'm going to go to Desktop, Maps, and here they are. Okay, now just to stay organized, I'm going to go ahead and work on, maybe I'll start with the frame. Okay, so if I click on the frame, this is the frame material. Okay, and I'm going to go find the frame stuff. So I can see here's frame. These are all the frame. Maybe I'll just bring in one at a time. So if I go to base color, now I have to click on the icon here, but I should be able to just drag it and drop it here. Now what I can do is this is the color that I brought in. So I can take the color slot and plug it into color. And now, actually it looks like it didn't make a difference here. That's because we're still in shaded mode. But if I switch this to viewport shading or the rendered shading, we'd be able to start to see it. So I can see that now it's making a difference. Okay, actually that looks pretty good. but it doesn't look reflective, it doesn't look shiny. That's because we need the other maps. So I'm going to go to the next one here, metallic. I'm going to drag this one in here. And by the way, if you click on the word, it's not going to work. You have to click on the icon there. Okay. Now, when I go to metallic here, I'm going to drag that into, you guessed it, metallic. Okay, I'm going to bring in color into metallic. Now, there's something that you have to remember here, is you have to change the color space to linear. Or we could switch it to raw. Oh, actually, I'll put it to linear. I don't think it actually matters. But what we're saying is that if there's a color image, you're going to keep that at sRGB. Basically, all the other maps we're going to set to linear. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of move that over here. I can see that I've got color in there. Now I'm going to go to, and I want to make sure that I'm working on the frame now. I got to be mindful of that. I'm going to go to the normal map. And if I drag that down here, I can see that something's already plugged in to the normal map. And this is kind of like the normal map, we'll call it converter. So I'm going to just bring this into here. And once again, I want to switch this to linear. Okay, great. Now if I go to roughness, I'm going to go ahead and bring in bike roughness. And you want to be careful to not, if you go over a path like that, it's automatically going to connect if you let up. So you want to be careful that you don't do that. So here's roughness, and here's roughness. If I go here, I can drag that into roughness. Okay, great. And I'm going to set this back to linear. And we can see that with everything that we're doing, it's starting to come together. Okay, it's starting to look pretty cool. And if I go to, let's see. Okay, so I have emissive, and I have emissive on this one. So if I go to emissive, I'll grab that and drag it down here. And now once again, you can see it's kind of getting a little full. So I'm just going to kind of bring that out like that. Bring in emissive. And you can see that if I put it right between that, okay, that's problematic. So what I can do is if I hold down Alt, okay, if I hold down Alt and click around these lines, it's going to disconnect. Okay, and now I can reconnect it. So you got to be kind of careful with that. So once again, this is roughness. I'm going to put this into here. And then this one is emissive. So I'm going to go to emissive. Okay, so if I go to color into emissive, I believe I can leave that at sRGB because it is, because color is important. But now you can see here I could go to emissive strength, and now I can bring that down or up. So it's kind of like turning the light on or off. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So maybe I'll leave it on a little bit. Okay, excellent. So we've got all that going on. And another thing I should set up, and it looks like there's something already set up automatically for us as far as the environment is concerned, but I think it's probably a good idea, even before we put the other stuff on, to ensure that we have a good environment. Okay, to do that, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to world. And in here in world, okay, it says background, and we want to put our image on here. So what I need to do is I need to go to the preferences. So I've got a window, or I'm sorry, edit preferences, and I'm going to go to add-ons, and I want to make sure that node, if I type in node, I want to make sure that node wrangler is enabled. Okay, and so I just check that. Basically, this is a plugin that adds additional functionality. And now, if I click on this and press Control-T, it kind of brings up this. And this is what the Node Wrangler, okay, does. Now, if I didn't have that installed, I could manually kind of do this, but it would just take longer. And this is a lot more efficient workflow. So now what I'm going to do is on the environment texture, I'm going to go ahead and click Open. And now I'm going to go, once again, to my desktop, find Maps, and I'm going to find that panorama image. Okay, Open Image. And now it should be here. And I might not see it until maybe I click on this one here, Viewport Shading. And now you can see that I can see that image. Okay, that's exactly the same one that we had. So that's going to be responsible for the reflections and everything else. Okay, so we're getting pretty close here, the only thing that I need to do is kind of continue that process for these other ones. Okay, so now I'm going to click on the motor, and just by the simple act of clicking on it, it's going to automatically select the correct material. And you'll notice that we kind of lost our material area here. So I'm going to go back to object, and now I have the material. You can see that the only thing it gives us kind of as a starting point is that normal map. Okay, kind of that buffer zone, so that's kind of nice. But now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to find my motor. Okay, so here it is, motor base color. I'm going to click on that icon, drag it down, and I'm going to go from color to base color. And okay, voila, that color looks good, but I still need to add the other one. So I'm going to go to height. I don't need height. That's actually would be plugged into displacement, but I feel like I don't really care about that. I'm going to go to metallic. And now I'm going to go ahead and plug color into metallic. Okay, excellent. And once again, kind of move these out of the way like that. And now I'll go to normal. And once again, this one goes into color. And I'm sure some of you are screaming at your screen saying, hey, Dave, you forgot to switch that to linear. And this one to linear. Okay, so we got to make sure that we do that. And why do we have to do that? Well, I feel like it's just saying that its color isn't important. The black and white information is what's important. So once again, I'm going to go to roughness, and maybe to just be safe, I'm just going to switch this right away so I don't forget. I'll switch that to linear. And now, once again, this is at roughness. I'll go ahead and plug that into roughness. And you want to be sure that when you're plugging them in, that you're going from the color slot, not the alpha slot. Okay. And I believe that's it. So we've got color, metallic, roughness, and the normal. Okay, great. That looks good. Now, let me see. Roughness, metallic. Okay, color. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Now I'm going to go to tires. So I can just click on the tire here. Here's my material. And now if I go to tires, here's base color. Just drag. Once again, color to base color. Metallic. Whoop. Okay, I don't want that. Okay, I just hit Control Z. I accidentally dragged it into the view. I don't want that. I can drag this in here. And now I can go to color, metallic. There we go. And I'll go tires normal. Drag that in here. And then once again, that can go into here, color to color. Switches to linear. And I forgot it again. There we go. And now tires roughness. And bring this in and go color to roughness, linear. Okay, excellent. And now I've got one more, I believe. So if I go to the basket, I can come in here and I can go find my basket. Basket base color. You might be asking yourself, like, why do I have so many? And I feel like I was just trying to kind of create the absolute highest resolution possible. So I split it up on several maps, each at 4K resolution. But whatever you have, you might have more maps than I have. You might have less maps. It doesn't really matter. It's just this process is going to be the same no matter what. Okay, there we go. And once again, I'll switch all these to linear. Okay, and I think that, okay, so let's see. And you know, sometimes we might not be able to trust this. I feel like I'm only going to trust it with the viewport, or I'm sorry, the final render to make sure that it's working. Because sometimes the order that we plug it in. But I actually did notice right here, I plugged this into the subsurface color. Okay, so you got to be real careful about that. So if I just held down Alt and broke that. So I'm going to bring this back into base color. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So this is looking just like substance. Okay, and if I go here, let's see. Yep. Okay, awesome. So now, if and you can see here, I could go to different settings there. Okay, awesome. So now if I go and add a ground plane, if I want to do that, I can go Shift A, Mesh Plane, and now I have a ground plane. And I might scale that up like huge. Okay, just something like that. And now I'm kind of ready to, kind of ready to do a render. So now what? So now I'm going to go like this. I'm going to actually split this view like this. And now on the bottom view, this is where I'm going to do my actual render itself. So maybe on this view, I'm going to just set this to viewport shading. And then down here, I'm going to click on this render icon here. So this is kind of floating here. And if I click on that, now I'm actually in what's called the render view. And as soon as they move, I'm out of that render view. Okay. So what you can do is if you click on that, now you can click on this arrow here, go down to view and say camera to view. And what that's doing is it's locking the camera to the view. So now when you move around, you're staying in the camera. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of move around here. And by the way, obviously to move around, I'm going to hold down Shift and middle mouse click to move, or just the middle mouse. Or I could do Control and middle mouse to kind of zoom in kind of more, have a little bit more control yet. Okay. To get rid of this menu, I can press N and it slides back like that. Okay, great. Now I've got the motorcycle here. Notice that I have this edit window that I can use the middle mouse to kind of navigate around and change stuff. If I wanted to rotate my lighting, I could select this and I could go to my rotate. And I could, well, actually I think I would have to go here to the world, and I would have to go to my texture coordinates, and this is where I could rotate the, here's like the rotation. So I could go in here and I could type in like 90 degrees and that would rotate it. And you can see how that affects the lighting. I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it how it is right here. And now if I wanna render, okay, so in Blender, if I go to render image, it's going to just kind of pop up and be another render window. So if I go to edit, preferences, I can do this. I can go to interface and temporary editors, and I can say render, and if I say keep user interface, what that's going to do is it's going to render, and this is going to be my render window right here. So now if I go to, and let's see what I'm rendering with. So over here, this is my render properties. So, and this is my kind of my render output settings. So I can see this 1920 by 1080. That's how big my render is going to be. And then I am, yeah, that looks, and then I can go here and I can open this stuff up and I can have additional things. But up here, I can choose Eevee or cycles. And I believe Eevee is the real-time render, and cycles is going to be, it's going to be kind of more of a true render. Now what I can do is if I go to, I'm still actually not looking at my render result. So if I want to see the render result, I believe I'd have to go up here to image editor. And now if I go here, I can say, I can view, any of my images here, or I could view the render result. Okay. So this is actually going to be my true kind of render result. Now I don't need this anymore over here. So I could bring this back to my 3D viewport if I want to kind of like make any edits or anything like that. I probably really don't even need this one down here, but I'll just kind of leave it just in case. Now, if I hit render image, it's going to update. It should update in this area here. Now this one's important because this is going to be my framing of this shot, but this is going to be where my render is going to kind of quote unquote live. And then if I need to make any edits, I've got this one. So I'll just pause the video while it takes time, and then I'll unpause it and we'll kind of see the result. Okay, so I can see that it finished and it looks like it took 2 minutes and 23 seconds. And if I want to zoom in, you know, I can kind of look around here and kind of, you know, kind of see the quality. And if I wasn't happy, you know, really with the quality here, I could go over here and I could set like my render samples up. So maybe like 256 or maybe even 512. And I'm going to put it at 512. No, I'll put it at 256. And you can also sometimes, this is going to be your processor and this is going to be your graphics card. Sometimes switching can be beneficial. I'll go ahead and try GPU compute here on my graphics card and at 256, and I'm going to do another render. Okay, so once again to do that, I'm going to go here. I'm going to say render image, and it's going to process this again with the new information that I gave it. Hopefully it looks a little better by bumping up this sampling, but feel free to kind of poke around in this area here. I know that some of the terminology is kind of confusing, but if you want to have better renders, you're going to have to kind of play around with this kind of stuff. Okay, kind of seeing the settings and also with the, you know, the output properties. So once again, the output properties, kind of like how big the file is, what type of file, and so on and so forth. So once again, I'll pause the video and come back in a second. Okay, I can see that one took 4 minutes and 48 seconds. And once again, now I can kind of zoom up by using the middle mouse wheel and kind of clicking around, and I can kind of see what that looks like. Now, let's say if I was happy with this, what I could do is I could come up here and go to Image, Save As, and now I could go back to my desktop here. I'll just save it right in here. I'm just going to call this Render. And call it Render. And I can see that it's saving as a PNG. Okay, so I can say PNG, or I could save it as a JPEG, whatever I want. I could switch that here. And I'll just go ahead and save it. Save as an image. And I could have also changed that here. And I could also tell where it's saving to. So hopefully that was helpful. Go ahead and like and subscribe. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments below. And once again, make sure that you subscribe to follow for more free, fun 3D tips and tricks. All right, have a great day.